Welcome to Heritage Acres Homestead. I'm Chas. Here you'll find our family as we strive to live a life that pleases the Lord. We do our best to make the most out of what we've been given, so we'd like to invite you to come along and join us on our journey.
Good afternoon, y'all, and welcome back to Heritage Acres Homestead. I'm Chas, and I'm thankful that you're here with me today. This afternoon, we're going to be talking about potatoes soup. And the reason we're doing some potato soup is we had a lot of rough weather over the past couple of days, actually 3 days. We've had spouts here and there, but last night was just a long, hard night of weather watching, and I think everybody's dragging a little bit today. It's been overcast most of the day, but the sun has just come out. And so I was thinking of something comforting, something a little bit easy. And as with most everything that I cook, I assess what we have and what needs to be used up. And these little beauties need to be used. I've had a couple that are getting a little too soft for me, and they need to be used. Now, for this potato soup, you can use any kind of potato you like. I like the soft skinned ones, like these little Yukons, or I call these new potatoes, but I believe it's like a Yukon gold potato. Let's open them up here. Or just little white potatoes. We're not real particular on brands, but yeah, it's got that creamy yellow center. When I go to the farm store over at the top of our mountain, they're just called new potatoes. So that's what I call them too. But I would imagine they're a type of Yukon Gold. But I like the potatoes that have the soft skin, because that way I just wash them up and they go in the pot, skin and all. And this is one of our, I love soups. But this one, I think most of the family enjoys. Maybe the boys not as much as the girls, but my girls, this is one of their very favorite meals. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna wash up these potatoes, and then we're gonna get them into the pot. Now with these, being that they're so small, I'm probably just gonna cut these in half and then in half again. So I'll just quarter them up, because I don't need to go very small with them, and I don't need to leave them whole, because that's just going to take longer for them to boil. So that way it'll be a little bit quicker, and we'll go from there. But if you do decide to use a russet, I would suggest you peeling those, because even though the skin is tasty, if you roast it in the soup, it can become tough. So that's my suggestion. I also really like to use the red skin potatoes for the soup too. And usually I have those more than I have the white skin. But today we have these because they look so good. And that's what we're going to do. Now I'm going to give you a list of things that I like to use in it as we go. Just know that the way I cook, if I don't have it, I just go along. And I may use it this time, but not necessarily next time. I'll give you a complete recipe of how I make it, but I will try to tell you along the way of, if you don't have this, that's okay. If you do have this, it's really good in there. And that's how you want to broaden your scope of how you cook and become familiar with the process more than a recipe, because cooking can be very one way or another. And especially if you are like me and you just cook and you make things work. I'll tell you, I've even made potato soup before with leftover potatoes, leftover mashed potatoes. It's just, there's so many things you can do if you just get a little bit creative in the kitchen, and don't hold yourself too hard and fast to the recipe. Basically, if you're boiling the potatoes, you're going to mash the potatoes up and you're going to give them some seasonings and some liquid at the end, that's pretty much a potato soup. But like I said, as we go along, you'll see the things that I do to kind of make it mine, and the flavors that we really enjoy. So it's rich, it's delicious, and it's very filling, and we very much enjoy this soup. So let's get busy. All right, so the first thing that I like to do is to take some bacon. And it can be just a few strips, it can be like a pack, it can be half a pack, whatever you use, whatever you would like, depending on how much you're gonna make. I make a large stock pot full because we'll eat on it for leftovers. So what I do is usually a pack or at least a half pack, but I'm out of bacon because we used it the other night for BLTs. And so what I'm gonna do is I've got bacon grease that I've saved, and it's gonna go into the pot, and I cook everything right in the pot. I don't use separate pans or pots to cook in. Everything goes straight in. And so I'll put the bacon grease in there, and then I'm gonna chop me a large onion. And this onion's very large. So I'm gonna chop it fairly fine, but it doesn't have to be too fine because I do hit this with an immersion blender at the end, most of the time. So I just peel all the skin back. There was a little odd spot on there. That's what I was looking at. And if you don't know the reason I do this so often, you probably would know if you follow me on Instagram. So over the years, if I'm doing like a story and I'm talking to the camera, you know, when I'm doing this, it's very blurry. If I'm trying to work, it's blurry to me. So I raise my glasses or take my glasses off. If I need to see it, like right now, the camera's quite a bit away from me. It's, you know, more than an arm's length. So I can see you just fine. But if it's closer than that, my eyes get a little wonky and I need to take my glasses off to be able to see it. This changed, I guess, when I got into my 40s, maybe second half of my 40s, I'm not sure which. But if you see me take my glasses off because I'm trying to focus on something, that's what it is. It's something that's going to be closer than arm's length. And so I'm trying to keep this at arm's length so I don't have to take them off. But I'll tell y'all, it's tough because sometimes I need to, you know, it's a back and forth. Some days it might be a little bit better and some days it might be a little bit worse. Your eyes change a lot after you get into your 40s. It's funny that, you know, a lot of things change after you hit your 40s. But we're just grateful for it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start chopping up this onion. And get it into that hot bacon grease and let it start cooking down. And then I'll start chopping up my potatoes, and then we'll add that to the pot too. And one thing I do, and like I said, this will all be written down roughly. It's a rough recipe here, but it'll all be written down with what I normally do, and so you'll understand it better. But one thing I do like to do with this soup is I like to cook my potatoes. You know how if you're ever boiling potatoes, you boil them in water and then you pour the water off. Well, one thing I like to do is I like to boil them in chicken stock and milk. That's going into my pot anyways, so why not use it? And then you got the starchiness there, and you just mash it all up or puree it up with your stick blender, and there's no, there's no back and forth. There's no having to pour out that hot water. Ooh, that onions, the sharpness of it is getting me a little bit now. You don't have to go and pour it out. You just add right onto it. And this is the way I do this recipe. I will take my onion into the baking grease first. I'll saute that down a little bit. Mercy, this onion is potent. Then, like I said, we'll go from there. But it's to me, I like to simplify, and there's no reason not to do it this way, because it's just saving you a step, and I'm all about that. So I'm gonna get this into the hot baking grease, and then we'll start cutting up potatoes. All right, guys, I've got these onions going in this pot, and they're really sweating down, and oh man, it smells so good. I'm out of my canned broth, so I have some that I put in the freezer, and I'm gonna go grab that out because that's gonna go into the pot. And it's not completely thawed, so this heat will hopefully thaw it on down. And then from there, once that's thawed, then I can add potatoes. In smallish pieces. Not tiny because there's just no need. But I want to cook, a little bit fast because I don't want it to heat the house up too much. So at least I'm cutting these in quarters. Some that are a little bit bigger, they'll go a bit more. Then I'll add this to the chicken broth and the onions, and then I will see just how much I have like liquid. And I just want to go to the top of the potatoes. I don't need to like cover it by, so many inches. I just need to have it, fairly covered. Now, again, this is just kind of a guideline of how I do it, and you can make it, and interpret your way. So if you like chunks of potatoes, leave them chunky. If you don't like it completely pureed, don't do it. Just kind of leave it a little bit thick and, with a little bite to it. And we do it, it's almost never exactly the same, but it's always good. And that's just how we roll. And I'm going to say I will probably use at least half of these, if not more. I don't want to make too big of a pot because, again, we're going to have leftovers, but it's Mother's Day weekend, and I know I'm going to cook for Sunday for us here. And I think we're going to do like a crock pot lasagna or crock pot enchiladas or something like that. So that it's easy for me to just put it in the pot Sunday morning, turn it on, and then it's kind of hands off. Because as much as I don't want to have to do a whole lot Sunday while my kids are here, I also don't want to be put in the predicament where I'm like feeling stressed about the food and the food choices. So I'm thinking ahead and getting that, already set in my mind on what I need to do for that. because my daughter is a mother as well, so I want her to be pampered. And sometimes when it's little, when you have little kids, you don't get a lot of that feeling special for Mother's Day yet. I remember when the kids were small, they would do some things, but it's not like it is when they get older, where you feel, when they take time just to be with you, and that's really special. And I don't take that for granted at all. I love it. And they always make me feel special. So it's not like it's has to be a set day, but I do enjoy it. I'm running out of room here on my cutting board, so I'm gonna cut this last one, and I'm gonna go plop these into the pot. All right, y'all. See my mess back there? It's still working. I have ended up using all the potatoes. I have a quart of broth, a half gallon with the cream of milk, and I'm just cooking the potatoes and onions in that broth and milk till it's all tender, and then I'll tell you what we do next as soon as we get there. So just going to keep an eye on this. I don't want it to scorch or anything on the bottom, so I'll just come over and stir it up here and there as the next, I don't know, maybe 20-30 minutes goes along. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lay this out. It's completely frozen, but it'll be okay. It's pretty warm, so it's going to thaw out. But I use and this is a quart, and you can use less, it'll be fine. You could use like even a can of cream corn, but this is a quart of corn that I put up last year. It's where I've creamed it. I put it in the freezer. I'm going to lay that out, and that's going to go into the soup as well. So mine, I like to say it's not really potato soup, it's more like I don't really know the term for chowder, but it's sort of like a chowder, like a potato corn chowder. But it's just delicious. So I like to add that, but we won't be adding that till the very end, once our potatoes are all cooked. And then we start seasoning it up. Also, occasionally I add some cream cheese if I have it. If I don't, that's okay. I can use sour cream. I could use some heavy cream. Any or all of that would work. But I do have cream cheese today, and I do want to make it with some cream cheese. So I'm going to lay out some cream cheese to put in there as well. And because it's basically going to be a full pot here, I didn't mean to make that much, but I always just make too much. I never make too much, but I always make a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out a block of cream cheese. So 8 ounces. If I had my goat cheese made, I could totally use that, but I'm just going to use a block of cream cheese, and that's going to go in there and just make it really luscious. Okay, the potatoes are fork tender, so I turn the heat off, and I'm going to start mashing them up a little bit with my potato masher. And again, like I told you before, you can leave them kind of chunky, or you can make them even more smooth with the immersion blender. And I usually break them down just a little bit with the masher, and then I go for the blender. getting there. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this whole block of cream cheese in there. Again, it tastes very good without it if you don't want it. But I had it, I'm using it. So. And that'll just get mixed up with the blender too. Let's see, what else do I add right now? I'm going to add a good pinch of salt, and we'll adjust that more as we get closer to the end. We'll add a good pinch of pepper. I got this fan blowing on me, so have to do it a little bit in the pot or it's gonna go flying. Been working on rearranging my drawer here, so I'm going to get garlic powder. And say that's probably 2 teaspoons. Same with onion powder. Come back with the masher again. Now, we'll get the immersion later. Let me show you. It's really thick and hearty. Of course, it'd be great for winter time, but being that we enjoy it anytime, it's gonna be great in warm weather too. So now I'm going to go ahead and put this in there. I'm probably going to have to cut this because it's still semi-frozen. But this will help it break down. The heat will make it break down. Flitter. And I do have the heat off, so, and like I said, I do not want this to scorch, so we're going to give this a little time for that corn to melt, or the ice to melt in the corn. I'm going to clean up my area, and then I'll be back to finish it off with all of our herbs and final tastings. Shannon just told me I have a baby goat out, so that's gonna work on the stove for a little bit. The corn is gonna thaw. I'm gonna go out and deal with the goats, and then I'll be back and we will finish up, so stay tuned. All right, so now is the time that we taste and we season. And so I'll tell you the things that I have some of this left where I was filling up my jars. I add some parsley. I'd say that's about a tablespoon. Chives, another tablespoon or so. Salt. I'm going to add a little bit more garlic powder because I've already tasted it and it's not nearly garlicky enough. Let's get that all stir. This is where you would add back your bacon, or you can just leave it out and top your bowl with it. You can also add some shredded cheese if you want that sort of loaded potato thing going. And let me give you a tip that one of my favorite friends on Instagram gave me. So she told me, keep a jar with spoons nearby your stove, because a good cook tastes as they go, and that way you know what you're serving. Don't serve your food unless you've tasted it. If it needs seasoning, if it needs altering in any way, it's best to do it now or during than when you put it on the table. Once it goes on the table, it should be good to go, and you don't need that seasoning. It's already been done. So, let's give it a taste. Oh yeah. And see, that's just about right. Before, when I was tasting it, it wasn't enough. Potatoes are sort of like sponges, so they do require a good amount of salt to bring out the flavor. Because I'm one of these that thinks a little more is usually better, I'm going to just go ahead and add the rest of that, the chives, and one more good pinch of salt, and one more good pinch of pepper. And that should be exactly the way I want. And being that I have my jar of spoons here, I don't have to go look for another one to taste. And I'm not reusing the same spoon, which would be not good. So, look at that. It is thick and wonderful. All right. Try again. Yeah. There you go, y'all. I'm going to serve this up. We're going to sprinkle a little bacon bit on there. Top it with just a little cheese. And that's how I make potato soup. I hope you enjoy.